Hi everyone, welcome to today's webinar. Thank you for taking your time to join our key strategies to maximize your 2017 budget webinar. Hopefully the hour you invest with the webinar will alleviate your budgeting uncertainties and headaches. As always, we've muted everyone to avoid audio disturbance. If you have any questions as we go through the presentation, we definitely encourage you to use them using the GoToWebinar chat box, and we'll address those questions at the end of the webinar. If time is running tight, we will get to the questions in our blog, which will be posted tomorrow with this recording in case you want to review certain sections covered today. Also in the chat box, you will find our handout for the day, the budgeting sheet that will be discussed at the end of the presentation. This webinar will also be interactive. We will ask a few poll questions during the webinar, so please participate on your screen. And without further delay, let's meet the people on the call today. I am Sarah Lunt, and I'm with our Chicago office for Milestone, and I'll be the moderator. Next is Bob Kippola. Bob is a leader on our development team. He's based in Colorado, and he has been with Milestone about 6 years. He has a true hospitality technology background, has been highlighting solutions to the hospitality industry for decades. Lastly, in our home office in Santa Clara is Tammy Carlisle. Tammy was actually a customer of Milestone for years before joining the team, and Tammy's specialty is understanding the problems and opportunities facing hospitality businesses and developing competitive solutions to increase revenue for local businesses. So let's see what you actually signed up for today. We will begin by discussing the customer and search behaviors businesses must keep in mind when planning for the future. We'll then highlight the importance of setting goals before diving into the comprehensive budgeting discussion. During the sections, we will discuss a checklist that we feel includes items you should be thinking of. Not mandatory, as every property is different, but highly recommended, as this will give you a great competitive baseline. We'll conclude the presentation with our budgeting checklist. We did briefly discuss this at our conference this past summer, so we'll go over again in detail, and of course it's in the chat box for you to grab. So Bob, please take it away today.
Thank you, Sarah. Exciting times in technology, hospitality technology marketing, and so what we wanted to do is go through some of the things that are happening right now that are impacting how you should be budgeting for 2017. We don't go online anymore, we live online. I think this is a fairly obvious topic now, as you know, the penetration of smartphones and tablets is very pervasive with consumers. And so, you know, when you're thinking about budgeting, you have to be attentive to the things that are going on and how things are changing. So we'll get into how search is changing, but devices are changing too. So smart cars and robots and artificial intelligence are starting to impact consumer behavior. And things like Siri and OK Google are already out there. And including mobile right there in the center. And we're going to talk about AMP, accelerated mobile pages, during this presentation. So these are some of the things that are changing within our industry and within how consumers are, you know, relating to their devices. Sarah, can you change the screen there? I can't get to the next. I think if I just mouse on there, it's probably going to be easier in the long run. And so, you know, initially what would happen when we thought about the customer journey was it was a linear path. You know, you started sort of in search, you visited a few websites, maybe you read some blogs or magazines, and you eventually made the reservation at a hotel. Now the customer journey looks more like a flight map for multiple cities. You know, people are bouncing all around within the web to different assets. You know, they're going from Facebook to looking at the TV to messaging with their friends on Instagram. And ultimately, you know, they're going to make a reservation. They may make it on your website. They may make it through a third party, but it's not a linear journey any longer. So Sarah, if you can go to the next one, please. And then, you know, mobile has just dramatically changed how we're interacting across the web. People have their phones on all the time. It's the always-on sort of generation now, as we all know. And these things we call micro moments. I want to look for a hotel while I'm standing there at the Brooklyn Bridge, or I'm sitting on public transportation, dreaming up my next vacation. So next slide, please. And then, the customer journey is really multifaceted now. So people could, in the example in the upper left there, they could go to Google. They could search for the best hotel in, say, Chicago. The knowledge graph may come up, the instant answers that Google now has, and they may just call the hotel for a phone booking. They may just click the call right there. Or they may start with Facebook. They may read reviews of your property. They may ask friends, and then they may on their computer, do another search for that hotel and go to the the hotel's website and make the reservation. So it's not a linear path anymore, and you have to be available in all in all these different areas to be able to connect with the consumer. And then, search is changing dramatically. If you go to the next slide there, Sarah, how the search engine results page has changed just in the last 10, 15 years is incredible. I mean, it used to be just a bunch of blue links there, as we see over there in 2005 in Google, and then they keep on making these little micro changes to the search engine results pages, resulting now in really specific things for mobile, coming up with direct answers in the knowledge graph, collapsing. It used to be the 7-pack, the 7 local links, and now it's down to 3, and going to those direct answers. So search has dramatically changed, and you just have to be aware of all these little things, all these nuances that are changing continually. Next slide, please. And so, even things like, artificial intelligence are without, consumers even knowing that they're using artificial intelligence. An example that we like to use is over on the right there with Apple Maps. Maybe you're driving to, work on a daily basis. Google Maps knows your route. They know that you're, because of past behavior, that you're taking a certain route, and perhaps there's an accident. And Google can now say, hey, you're going to work, and there's an accident on your usual route, you should probably take this new route. Or, Google Now there on the left-hand side showing, if you put in things like, your flight reservations and where you're going, it can predict what you want to see. Maybe you're going to Pittsburgh, and Google will know that, the weather's important. It knows that maybe there's a baseball game going on. It knows that you probably want to look at the traffic. So these artificial intelligence items are coming into the sort of normal day-to-day use of smartphones and tablets. Next slide, please. And so, the next extension of this are, these personal assistants. The Google Assistant, I'm sure a lot of people are used to hearing people ask questions of Siri. And then the Amazon Echo, if you want to order, another bag of potato chips, you can just use your Amazon Echo now, which sits in your house, and you can ask the Echo to do that. And if you're an Amazon Prime member, those potato chips will show up to your house in just a couple days. So next slide. And then, voice search is becoming very prevalent as well. So, in the U.S., over 50% of queries are coming from mobile phones. And of those queries, 20% of those are people speaking into their phone. And so, the search engines are learning the different queries that are being asked, and they are serving up results based on those different sorts of searches. People speak into their phones differently. They might use longer queries, and they're more sort of those micro moments where, is there a hotel near me now with availability? Next slide, please. Next slide, please, Sarah. And then, these personal assistants, they're giving proactive suggestions. They're collecting the data. They're seeing what you've done in the past and predicting the sorts of things that you are going to ask in the future. And it's critical for your digital assets to be ready for these sorts of things that are happening with these personal assistants and voice search. So you have to have a new kind of metadata, which Tammy will talk about here in a moment. You have to have data structured in a certain way so that Google can extract that information from your website and be ready to present that to those potential guests as they're making searches for potentially your property. Next slide, please. And so I'm going to turn it over to Tammy now about establishing the budget and goals based on some of these new trends that are happening in the hospitality industry.
Great, thanks, Bob. So you guys are probably wondering, what did all that have to do with budgeting? And frankly, it has a lot to do. Bob did a great job kind of setting the stage of how the world is changing and how our consumers are changing and how we have to think as we're budgeting for 2017 and beyond to establish the right goals so that we can continue to make money. Now, when you think of your goals, right, what are the key elements of your 2017 digital marketing plan? So you want to establish your goals first and foremost. You want to think about all the different components that impact digital marketing, whether that's your website, whether that's organic search, the analytics behind your website, email marketing, social media, media advertising. All of these things play a big role in your planning. And then you want to delve in and establish specific goals for your individual property or your business entities. So, for example, you may have a hotel. I've worked at hotels that were in markets that were incredibly heavy business travel midweek and sat empty on the weekend. So maybe your goal is to try and drive more weekend business. Maybe your goal is to gather more group business. You've got 50,000 square feet of meeting space that you're trying to fill. Maybe your goal is to, I would be willing to bet, and we'll talk about in a minute, goal is to decrease OTA contribution. So you want to figure out what those goals are. You want to look at what is your current channel contribution mix, where is your business coming from today, and then think about how do you want to change that. I was talking with a group that earlier today, actually, that is currently getting 40% of their business from OTAs, and as you can imagine, they want to shrink that. Likewise, I've talked to other groups, 50, 60, 70%. So think about where and how your channels are currently mixing and what you want it to be in the long run. And then also, look at what your digital presence is today and do some competitive analysis, see what's out there to establish the right goals. Now, as I mentioned, one of the biggest goals that we're seeing quite often is people want to decrease their dependency on OTAs. So this is actually a study that was done looking at Q3 for 2014 versus 2015 revenue in the top 50 markets worldwide. And what's really interesting is over that year period, quarter on quarter, year over year, web traffic actually grew from 26% of the total to 27.1% of the total. So hey, if we're just looking at driving more direct business and online through the web, we're doing that. But OTA contribution grew at an even faster rate, from 14.7% up to 17.5%. So it's not just enough to say we want to decrease our dependency on OTAs and grow more direct, but you got to look at that as a total of your overall channel mix and really be mindful. And I'm willing to bet that there's a lot of people on the call today that this is one of your key goals. So we're going to take a minute. I'm going to let Sarah, turn over to Sarah for a poll.
Yeah, so our first poll question today kind of just touches on what Tammy and Bob talked about with a comprehensive view. So go ahead and answer, what percentage of your marketing budget is allocated to digital? While I'm gathering the results, let's see, 1 second. Let's share the results as well to see everything. All right, so most of you all chose 20 to 40%. And there is a bit of a range on here today, which makes sense because we do have a variety of properties. But so Tammy, let's go ahead and get started talking about the budgeting. Dive right into it.
Fantastic. Thanks, Sarah. So I want to set, as we delve into more about the actual budgeting piece, sorry guys, we're having a little technical difficulty here, but as we delve into the budgeting piece, I'm going to break this down into various sections. So we're going to start by talking a little bit about your website, your design, and technology. I want to set a few caveats. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that, I'm not going to give you a number. I'm not going to tell you that you should put $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000 towards building a website. And the reason I'm not going to do that, a couple of things. Number one, as Sarah said, hey, there's a wide range of people in this room. And let's be realistic. Some properties have different needs than others. And for me to just make a blanket statement on behalf of Milestone would actually be doing a disservice to you. So we're not going to just say this is the number you should be at. But we're going to talk about things to be mindful of as we go along. I'm also not going to sit here. I'm going to give you some checklists of things to think about, but we're not going to sit here and give you a comprehensive list of every feature you should think about on your website. I'm not going to tell you that, you know, oh, you should have an event calendar, and you should have dynamic content, and you should have this, that, and the other thing. If you want a more comprehensive list of features, in the download handout that that Sarah had, the download handout that's on there, it has a list of additional features and detailed on every different bucket for you. What we're going to talk about is things to be mindful of along the way. So first of all, thinking about your website. When you're doing your budget, look at your existing website today. How old is it? How long has it been around? If it's been around more than 3 years and it's not responsive, it's probably time to budget to build a new website. What's your mobile presence look like? We'll talk a little bit about this. What's your website technology? Again, how old is it? Do you have the latest platforms? Do you have, Bob mentioned some of the artificial intelligence and, that they rely on structured data and schema. If your website doesn't have any of that, you're not delivering that information to the search engines. It's going to hurt your performance. The design, how old does the design look? Are you doing things like conversion rate optimization? So you may have a good-looking site, but is it optimized and maximized to maximize conversion? And if not, hey, let's do that. The features, again, I mentioned a few. We're not going to delve into them today because we just don't have the time. But think about things that you could add to your site that would help from a user perspective. And then, of course, content. So from a mobile perspective, we've been hearing for years about mobile-first design. It's the year of mobile, it's the year of mobile, it's the year of mobile. Now it's really, last year was the year of mobile. Over 50% of searches are mobile. So when you think about the way that you build your mobile site, you want to think through things like, can they click to call? Is it, set up with local content that's specified just for the mobile device? If you have a responsive site that's adaptive, you can do those things. Are you talking about unique selling points? Sticky navigation, and then are you taking advantage of the functions of your phone, like swipe features and interfacing that makes it easy for the consumer to do what they want to do? The other thing you really have to think about is your website speed, both for your mobile and desktop. Think with Google. First of all, if you've never played on the website Think with Google, head over there after the webinar. It's a fantastic resource. And we're going to talk about it on a couple things here. But one of the tools they have is this, hey, test how friendly your mobile site is. You can punch in your website URL, and it will test your mobile friendliness, your mobile speed, and your desktop speed, and it will give you results. If your numbers are below 75, you really, really, really want to look at why and work to change that. It has been stated that more likely than not, mobile speed is going to become a ranking factor in the eyes of Google. You want to be prepared for that. On that same subject, you may or may not have heard of accelerated mobile pages, or AMP. So accelerated mobile pages is a whole, it's a framework by Google to help create faster loading websites. Again, we truly believe that this is going to become a ranking factor, is how fast your site loads. Now, what's really cool, AMP has rolled out already for new sites. It's in beta. It's about to roll out for most other things. There was actually a big hospitality meeting yesterday where a Google rep talked about what was coming, and AMP was one of the highlighted things. AMP pages, just to give you an idea, the median load time for a non-AMP website, and this is not just Milestone, this is across all websites out there, the baseline is about 22 seconds. A median load time for AMP sites is 0.7 seconds. Imagine how much faster people getting data, how much easier it's going to be for them to continue to be interested and hang around. It takes me 22 seconds to get data. I'm bored, I've moved on, and I may go elsewhere. So the question is, are you AMP ready? And if not, something to think about when you're budgeting for next year. Now, the other thing is, we talked about artificial intelligence. We talked about all of these things that the search engines are doing. Google's really moving away from just content and looking at, the keywords and how many times you throw San Francisco hotels on a page, to really becoming a machine learning first company, using their algorithms, using their technology to try to create new algorithms which actually improve performance and behaviors. And one of the cool things, Google has this project AlphaGo, and the AI behind AlphaGo actually beat an 18-time world champion in China in this Chinese board game. And it was really interesting. It won the series 4-1. Li Dole won the first game, and then Google's AlphaGo won the rest. Was able to figure out, based on behaviors and watching, and created algorithms that improved the machine's performance. That's coming in digital marketing too. We're going to see this more and more and more. Another thing that you want to be mindful of is conversion rate optimization. Again, you may have a gorgeous website, but little tweaks are going to help you get that traffic that's on your site to convert at a higher rate. This is an example of a property that just made some minor tweaks. They took where when you moused over, some content popped up, and what they saw was a 40% image in hover clicks, in other words, hovering over and clicking on these things, and actually a 10% increase in the traffic that actually clicked on Book Now and went to the booking engine, just by making a few minor tweaks through conversion rate optimization on the website. Something definitely worth thinking about putting in your budget for 2017. Okay, so now I'm going to shift a little bit into content. It's still obviously related to the website. Again, back to one of my favorite websites, Things with Google, and there's a link on the presentation, and you can also, it'll be in our recap tomorrow on the blog. This is a whole topic on travel micro moments within Think with Google. Really cool article series. It's like a 6-part series. If you think of a customer journey, and you think about the difference between, I'm doing a research, making a plan, or actually booking it, you can see that people are doing, on average, lots of different searches. Even the first example here, this 534 Google searches. This was that I want to get away, and I started thinking about it. Their prototype profile persona that they highlight in the article actually looked at not only 534 Google searches, but also 1,400 images, including things like Google Street View, Google Maps, and other image sources. So these are all things you're going to be mindful of from a content perspective, is that you have content based on wherever the consumer is at in the customer journey. So you wanted to create your content based on what your searchers are interested in. And there's typically 3 different types of queries that are out there. Consumers are searching for information. That's typically your questions, we'll call long tail. It's a much longer search term, and that's about 50 to 80% of the queries that are out there. They're looking for navigational. They're looking to navigate or direct themselves to a specific website or a brand. Those are oftentimes branded terms. And then transactional, when they're actually ready to buy. And of course, we all focus on the ready to buy because, hey, that's what we all want. But we find that you need to have a bit of all 3. And when you create more of the informational, you actually get people on your site when they're still doing their research and still kind of in that phase where they're thinking about what they want to buy. So when they're ready to buy, hopefully they're actually thinking about you. And what we found is that the search engines reward websites for providing content that's relevant. So this was just a simple search for things to do in Santa Clara. And of course, TripAdvisor is showing up because they have a lot of content on their website. But this property also managed to, they wrote content and information about the things to do in their backyard, and they're also ranking on the top page of Google for the search term. So the search engines are going to reward you by having content that's relative to what the user is interested in. So you want to make sure when you're doing your budget that you're thinking about putting some dollars in, whether it's resource of time because you're going to have someone on the team writing content, or a resource of allocating dollars to hire content writers or agencies to help with this. You definitely want to have content on your site. Now the other thing is think about images. Images are content too. And so it's really important that you spend some dollars if you don't have great quality photography to put some photography in place. This is going to come into impact both from digital marketing on your website, obviously as you can see in image search results, and also within social media and other areas. So when you're thinking about this, and I'm going to task everyone, after the call, go to Google, do a search for your hotel name, and then go into images and see what shows up and see how many of those images are actually pulling from your direct website, your digital content, versus OTAs and other sources. Again, really important to have good quality images, just as important to make sure that the images that are showing up on the search engines are coming from you. And if you don't have this, you want to budget some dollars to fix your website, to do the right things so that your images are showing up more so than others. So just a quick checklist reminder, some of the things that we talked about. And again, I could easily spend an entire hour, shoot, I could spend 5 hours just talking about these pieces in more depth. Today is really about what you should be budgeting for. But you want to focus, make sure that you have a good mobile presence, that your website technology is up to date, and I'm going to stand by, if your site's more than 3 years old, put some money in the budget next year to update it. You want to make sure you designed, you need to do any conversion rate optimization updates, what kind of features are out there that you might be able to add that will help drive a better ROI in your content. On that end, I'm going to take a quick break and let Sarah ask our next poll.
Yeah, so this will be a great time to ask about the website after we just got done with the section. So when was the last time your website was rebuilt? Hopefully you recall this because it wouldn't be that far away. Or if so, are you budgeting for 2017? Are you planning for 2018? Send us the results and let's just go ahead and share. So it looks like most of you all on the phone today, it was actually this year. So that's great to see. And it's always changing and upgrading. So let's go on to see more updates we can do and include for budgeting 2017.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sarah. So guys, we talked a lot about website, and good news is a lot of you have either just rebuilt or, definitely on the path before 2015, so we don't want to look at rebuilding. So next we're going to focus on budgeting from an organic and local presence standpoint. And I want to start with a checklist again. So we're going to focus on a couple things here, and I'm not going to lie, it kind of killed me to spend so little time talking about organic and local optimization because I think this is such an important thing and definitely something to look at spending dollars on. I know there's a lot of talk that SEO is dead. SEO is beyond not dead. There's still a lot of good things here. I would say if you want to delve into more detail, our team did a great webinar last month on the impact your rank and revenue with top search strategy. So the idea was things you can do to help improve in this area. Fantastic webinar. I highly recommend going back and listening to it if you weren't part of the series last month. But here are some things to be mindful of from a budget standpoint. Number one, your local search results. Okay, now you can't just pay to have great local search results, but you need to be mindful of things like your Google My Business and other sources to help improve your local search results. Organically, things like aggregators, links, maps, citations all play a role, and I'll talk about these in a second. And then some kind of, whether it's you're working with an agency and they're managing this for you, or some kind of management tool for your listings to make sure you have consistent information out there about your properties. Sorry guys, we're having some technical difficulty here. So again, SEO, not dead. Branded versus non-branded searches. So we're actually seeing that 2/3 of your search queries are location-based, right? So think about it. 2/3 are based on location and travel. Only about 1/3 is primarily branded. So again, it's not just about making sure you're known for your name. That's important, but that's not the only thing. And what we're seeing is the Google Near Me searches have increased by 34x since 2011. So you want to make sure, with that in mind, that think of, again, back to how our consumers find us, you want to make sure that you're visible in the areas that your customers are. So think about how customers interact with us. They go to our website, but they also, hey, I'm heading to the hotel, and so I pop the information into Apple Maps or Google Maps. Or maybe I'm following you on Facebook or Twitter. You want to make sure that you are completely visible no matter where that consumer is trying to connect with you. And how it works, so how do you do that? Well, of course, you have a Facebook page and you have a website and you have these things. But what happens, if we think about, I'm going to use maps as an example. So you have all your basic content and information, and Realistio, in this case, this property is working with a company with a software tool that publishes and shares this information with various data aggregator sources. You may not be familiar with LocalEase, but LocalEase is a company that Facebook partnered with when they launched Facebook Places. So all that initial business data information about you came from LocalEase. And these aggregators push this information out to various channels and also to different maps and navigation systems. And then that interacts at the end to the consumer and the user, whether they're on their desktop, whether they're using their Apple Watch, or whether they're using their car navigation system. So it's really important that you have consistent information across this local ecosystem so that you show up. So again, just very quick, today on organic and local, you want to make sure you're thinking through your local search results, things like your Google My Business, being local. You want to make sure that you're thinking through, do you have consistent information, and if not, what do you need to do to get consistent information on the major aggregators, your maps and citations links. And then you want to look at whether you're partnering with an agency or having some kind of listing management tool that can help make sure you're pushing out consistent information across the local ecosystem, and then also making sure it continues to stay up to date. Because what we didn't touch on in depth is the fact that you push out information, and then the next thing you know, there's something change or wrong, or something crawls wrong, and the next thing you know, you have inconsistencies out there. So the next topic we're going to talk about is social media. Social media is becoming more of an important play, and there's some things we're going to think about when we're budgeting for social media in 2017. So we want to think about our content marketing strategy. You want to think about imagery. We talked a little bit about that earlier. You want to think about paid social media and also your reputation management. Highlight a few things here. So for your content strategy, a couple things. Social media is not free. It's a resource. It's either a time resource or a money resource. So you either have someone on staff that's doing these things for you, or you hire somebody to do these things for you. When you're creating a content strategy, a few things to think about from a budget perspective is the types of topic and information you share. If all you're sharing today on your Facebook page is your latest hotel special or promotion, you probably are turning people off and aren't creating a lot of engagement, and likewise aren't creating a lot of traffic back to your website and a lot of bookings. So you want to have a mix. You want to talk about the things that are happening in the market, whether it's events or different fairs, festivals, the holiday type things that happen once a year, or maybe even just once. And then you also want to have a good mix of evergreen topics, attractions, things to do, things that don't change. I was telling someone earlier today, Statue of Liberty is probably not going to move in the next year. So if you're writing or talking about something, attraction in your market like Statue of Liberty, it's probably still going to be relevant 6 months from now, a year from now. So those things that are always good topics. And then, of course, you do want to have a little bit of hotel information, because otherwise, you're, again, not driving down towards conversion. You just want to make sure that's not all you're providing. Now, social media is not free. What we're seeing is that organic reach is decreasing dramatically. And Facebook's not shy about the fact that, they're trying to monetize this. And so only about 2 to 5% of Facebook fans are seeing a post from a brand page. Now, if you put even just $5 towards boosting a Facebook post, it will make a difference in that percentage and how many people actually see your ad. So you want to make sure you're budgeting some dollars towards boosting posts to help drive more. Then, think about ways that you can integrate the content on your social, your paid search, and your website efforts. So this is an example of a property who had did a contest and a sweepstakes, and we could sit here and spout that, hey, they got 3,900 new fans. That's fantastic. But Really, does fans bring money to your owners or to the bank? Well, unless you've calculated the value of a fan, you don't know. But what you do know by looking at this is that by running this promotion or this contest and reaching these people, they actually saw a 9% increase in traffic year over year to their website. And then you can dovetail down further into what kind of changes did that make to transactions and booking. So what we're seeing overall is when you integrate this holistic approach, you can actually drive more revenue at the end of the day and more traffic and visibility to your website, which is the channel where people are actually going to book. So really mindful, think about these things. Think about ways you can incorporate stuff like this. Social contests are very low cost, but will drive a lot of value for you. Okay, so from a social presence standpoint, so again, content marketing, your social media in general, coming up with a strategy. Imagery, very important to have high quality images for social media. Your paid social media, putting some dollars towards media on social channels. And then, of course, your reputation management strategies. Next, we're going to talk about media advertising. So a couple things to be mindful of when you're thinking about paid search or media advertising, just that paid search, your Google AdWords, Yahoo Gemini, your behavioral ads, travel media ads, display ads, and social media. Now, again, I'm going to take a step back and just say I'm not going to sit here and tell you should spend $5,000, $500,000, $5 on paid search or on media. The number really depends on a lot of factors. 900-room hotel in New York probably has a big difference in budget than a 50-room hotel in Fresno, California. So be mindful of how many rooms do you have to fill? What kind of market are you in? And then back to what are your goals? If your goals are about visibility and branding, maybe you're a brand new property or you've changed your name and you want to get the word out, maybe you do some more of these top visibility and branding things like Yelp and TripAdvisor, some social channels. If your goals are conversion and revenue, which most people I talk to, that's at least a piece of the goal, then you want to focus on the bottom end of the funnel. You want to focus more on AdWords and Yahoo and maybe Dara and Sojourn, which we'll talk about here in a sec. As search is becoming more personalized, you can do things like travel intent and behavioral display advertising. And the really cool thing about this is it allows you to do a couple things. There's, Dara and Sojourn each have different travel networks that they partner with to get data. And they're able to help you show your ads to people who, maybe they're in the market to travel. Maybe they've booked airfare to your location, but they haven't booked a room yet. People who travel frequently. And also they're able to kind of do lookalikes. They're able to see customers that match profiles that, and book at properties that are similar to yours and show your ads there. And this helps fill rooms, this helps prospect for new customers, and helps drive customers back to your website. So from a media advertising standpoint, paid search, behavioral ads, travel media ads, display ads, social media, all very important things. Now we're going to shift gears and talk a little bit more about business intelligence tools. Many of you may have these already in your budget, but for example, you think about when you're putting together your budget for 2017, you want to be looking at some competitive analysis data. You want to look at not only your own website, but also those of your competitors. What kinds of, how are they doing and having consistent information? How are you doing? What's your website speed look like? And the handout that we provide actually has a whole checklist with tools linked there that you can use to check many of these things out. But you can also do different intelligence, business intelligence data. And what you also want to do as part of this is understand the impact of what you're spending. So when you're coming up with your goals in your budget for 2017 and you're looking at your analytics data, you want to understand where your revenue is being attributed. You want to, what happens is typically most booking engines will do what's called last click attribution. So in other words, in the example below, the guest in question actually came to the website 6 different times. And you see they started with paid search, they did paid search again, they did referral, direct, paid, on and on. And so what happens is from a booking engine perspective, that gets basically attributed to organic search. But what happened is that guest came over the first time from paid search, then paid search again. And so the credit goes to the organic search. But yet you're spending the money on paid and referral, which helped drove that, and it's not being attributed appropriately. So make sure you understand the value of attribution. What's going on? There's also intelligence tools out there that'll help you see your digital health and competitive analysis. You want to look at putting some dollars there. This will give you some really good insight into what you're doing and what your competitors are doing and how you can make this better. There's also intelligence tools that will give you source and channel contributions. So being able to see where's your traffic and your website leads coming from, and also what, again, back to channel contribution. I want to drive more direct business and less OTA business. And I'll help you tell you where you're at and where you're going, and you look at what that looks like comparative to your competitors.
Perfect, Tammy. I'll give you a nice break to get some water and calm your voice for a second, and we'll do our last poll question of the day. Let's see. So after hearing the latest trends and strategies for 2017, where do you see your 2017 budget being for digital marketing? And please definitely remember to include paid media, which Tammy just went over for the various markets and the various spends. Okay. So it looks like we have a lot under 15 grand. Of course, thank you everyone for supplying your answers today and really taking part in the webinar. And let's continue, Tammy.
Great, thank you, Sarah. So on that note, let's talk just for a minute. We're going to wrap up with the budgeting checklist. So again, back to what Bob talked about, or actually I talked about earlier, establishing goals for your property. Really thinking through your goals. So one of the documents we have on here is a digital marketing checklist, so I'll get to in a minute. But use that to help you, come up with your goals, come up with your channel mix, think through the competitive analysis piece and where you are and where you want to be. Some things, again, not giving numbers, but some areas that you want to look at adding to your budget next year. If the website you have today is over 3 years old or not responsive, it's not mobile friendly, you ran it through that test and you got a 0, which actually happened to me with a potential customer I was talking to last week. You definitely want to budget dollars for a website for next year. Paid search, because of some of the things that Google's been doing, getting rid of the right rail and that, we're seeing on average about a 5 to 10%, if not more, increase in paid search costs. So you want to be mindful that that's going to happen to you in the next year and budget for it appropriately. Competitive analysis tools and data. You want to make sure you have some dollars there to help you, make data-driven decisions versus just decisions over, ooh, I like that or that looks pretty. Features that maybe didn't exist when you did your budget last year. Maybe there's something new, whether it's some dynamic content things or other areas that talk to your current provider, talk about what they have new to offer or things that can help compel you to do better next year. Last minute promotions. I don't know how many times I'll talk to them and they're like, they have a hole to fill. Make sure you have some dollars set aside when you have holes to fill that you can do something quick, down and dirty to help fill those rooms. And then lastly, the unknown. And I use Pokemon Go as an example. Let's be realistic. Nobody's making millions of dollars off Pokemon Go other than the creators. But I do know a lot of hotels that have leveraged creating Pokestops and some other things to actually drive more business to their outlets for very few dollars because they had some money in their budget that they could shift or do there. Always have some dollars in your budget for the unknown, because what you don't know that's coming in the next 6 months could be that thing that drives you over the edge to be able to make budget. Now, there's one handout with 2 documents in it. One is the digital marketing checklist, and this was put together very categorically to walk through your goals in your website. And you can see there's 2 columns in it. One is to decide if the question is relevant or not. So if it's relevant, you put a 1. If it's not, just use a 0. And then you give yourself a rating. And in some cases, it'll be 0 or 5. You've either done it or you haven't. And in others, you can give yourself a scale rating, and this will give you a score. And you can actually run yourself and run one of your competitors through it and see how you're scoring competitively. The other tab in the document is the Digital Marketing Planner budget. And this was well thought out. This is something that our team uses when talking with our customers for next year to put together a comprehensive budget plan. of the things they should be doing. And it's broken down by category. I've just showed one here, which is the website piece. And this is where you're going to get very detailed on features, options, things that are out there that you may want to consider in your budget for 2017. Please feel free to download this, and also a link will be available on the blog recap. And if you have any questions on that, just let us know. On that note, I'm going to turn things over to Sarah, and thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you, Tammy and Bob, for sharing the insights today and really hitting home the budget items many hoteliers are facing right now. And of course, a big thank you for everyone joining on the call today. And we did cover quite a bit of info, so please continue sending in your questions in the chat log. We'll get to these in the next minute. I'll fill the air by telling you to go to our website, go to our social pages, follow us for the latest industry news, and you can always email sales at Milestone for any questions. Fittingly, during this budgeting webinar, we do have 2 promotions happening currently. Milestone, of course, develops award-winning websites that drive revenue. So to entice those of you who have not had a website update lately, an overhaul answered earlier, here's the extra push for you. You can receive an extra free month of services per contract year, or extra 10% of the cost, credited to your account for, let's say, if you wanted to do a social media sweepstakes or something like that, you can have the opportunity to do so. So continue sending those questions in. If you've got questions about the promotions, email us, snail mail us, everything. We'll take it all. So we do have a quick question. We'll get started. Would you value a new mobile website over a new desktop website? Bob or Tammy, are you there?
This is Bob. So it's sort of both. If someone is building a mobile website, they should consider just building a new, fully responsive website that works with all devices, whether it's desktop, tablet, or mobile phones. And then they should also employ the AMP pages, the accelerated mobile pages, within that. If they don't have a huge budget, there is a way to do an add-on AMP, accelerated mobile pages website. But it's not as preferred as just starting from scratch, using the latest technology, and having a website that works with all devices efficiently.
Perfect. So responsive one site. Perfect. Let's see. Another question, or I guess somewhat a statement. Photography is expensive, and then the question is, what about stock photos?
Yeah. So here at Milestone, we have hundreds of thousands of stock photos through a company that we use. So as an agency, we get the use of those. So if you're a Milestone customer, we can find lots of content for you, lots of stock photos to use in any campaigns or on the website. If you're not a Milestone customer, you can go to Shutterfly, or there's lots of stock photo companies out there, Getty Images, and you can either buy a subscription or purchase photos individually. And then what I've seen happening a lot lately, which is kind of interesting, is there's these companies have popped up where they take standard photos, they take your standard photos, and then they put them through their software, and it sort of makes the images stand out and makes them much crisper. So there are companies, I think it was HD Photos, that are doing that, where you can just send them to them, and with a regular iPhone, if it's the lighting's okay, then they can manipulate the photos to make them look like much more expensive photographs.
I'll piggyback on that, especially if they're using the iPhone 7. I take it. And another important thing about photography is some social sites do require authentic photographs. So rather than stock, like Instagram, you've got to use your own photography. So I would definitely include that in the budget, or that new iPhone 7 for your front desk person to take photos, which I'm sure they will not complain about. Let's see. Another question today, should social be more important than paid marketing in your budget?
that one depends, right? It depends if you're a branded hotel or you're an independent hotel, and it depends on sort of the level of service and how much competition you have in the marketplace. If you take like I'm working on a project right now with a remote fishing resort up in Alaska, and there's only a few competitors, so they're going to show up, probably on the first page of Google, and if they're doing a paid ad, which are relatively inexpensive, they're going to show up. But if they want to differentiate themselves, then engaging in social media will have potentially a very large effect. So I don't know if it's either or. It's probably depends on the property, the location, the size, and whether it's branded or unbranded.
Okay, great. Well, that does wrap up our questions today. Once again, anyone on the call, please send in any other questions you may come up with overnight or in the next few days to sales@milestoneinternet.com, and we can always add those questions to the blog for everyone to see the answers and questions. Thank you, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.